this computer. Thank you for that.
It's done.
Okay. And okay, we good? Everybody see it? Okay, please put your feet pointed straight ahead, hip bone distance apart. Take a few deep breaths as you bring the air into your body. Feel the weight on your feet between the front and the back foot. Just close your eyes and feel where the weight is between the front and the back foot. Just notice. And then go ahead and step to the top of your mat. And keeping your outer edges of your feet pointed straight ahead. See if I can get just a touch more of. Yeah. Outer edges of the feet pointed straight ahead. Reach your arms up to the sky. Big full breath in. Slightly bend your knees and exhale. Fold forward. Reach toward the floor and take a couple deep breaths. Walk your fingertips forward. Pull your hips back so that you're moving your ribs and your shoulders and your hips in opposite directions. Take a deep full breath in. Exhale completely. One more. Inhale. And exhale. And then come on up however you want to come up. Reach your arms to the sky again. Reach all the way up. Full inhale. Exhale. Bend your knees. Fold over. Folding at the hips, letting the pelvis roll over the top of the thigh bones. Then bend your knees and just lengthen the side body. Walk the tips of your fingers forward. Get as long as you possibly can between your hips and your shoulders. Take a deep breath. And then bring your hands to your hips. Bring your shoulders onto your back. And come on up. Oh, would you like to teach a move real quick? Okay, excuse me. Be nice to me.
Okay.
What would you like to teach? Go ahead.
So, does that like to stretch our legs?
Okay. Stretch your legs and then side kicks.
And let's keep stretching.
Okay, I'm gonna do it with you. Reach it out there. Reach it out there.
Now.
That's good. Keep going with that one move today. You putting your foot on the floor or leaving it off the floor? Reach.
And you want to make it touch the floor when it's all the way across.
Okay. Cool. Grab your critter mask and get to school.
Have a great day at school, Merrick.
Oh. Up on top of there. Find them. Okay.
No, I did not find them.
They're up on top of that basket. Okay, from this position, go ahead and step back onto your hands and knees. And round and arch your back. Finding all the way around, tailbone down, pushing the lumbar rectors, this area of your middle back that can often be tight. Go ahead and press that to the sky. Open up your shoulders. Let them come wide apart off your back. Chin down. And then the other way, lifting your tailbone, letting your low back arch, middle back move into that space. Shoulder blades come together, head up, round, and arch. Coordinate all of those motions.
Mama?
long as McCoy gets them. Yeah. Okay. Onto your back, feet on the floor, knees bent. From there, bring your arms out to the side. Open up your upper back with your reverse presses. Squeeze your shoulder blades underneath your back, in towards your spine. Pinch them together. Find the fascial connection between the opposite leg and the opposite arm. And just find that as you press that shoulder down into the floor, you're also pressing that opposite foot. And then change the one that you're focusing on. So kind of left shoulder, right foot, finding that connection between and across the back of your body and release, and then pressing both shoulders but focusing on the right shoulder now and left foot and release. Press, release. And then reach your arms up, interlace them or keep them apart, your choice. Pull your arms over your head to the floor, all the way up, letting your whole upper back move into extension. Back up and all the way over. And then break that up a little bit so that you're bending your elbows as you come down and sending your whole arm back up over your head. Full reach, and then bend your elbows, bring your elbows by your sides so that the shoulder is sliding up there. We're breaking up those neural connections between the arm bone, shoulder, and elbow. Let's do 10 more of those. Excellent. Moving into flexion, arms out to the side, shoulders tucked underneath you. Bring your knees into your chest. Stretch your heels up to the sky. Pull the outer edges of your feet down towards you. Starting to line up the lower leg with the knee and the hip. Bending your knee, coming down, taking it back up. Knees into your chest. Again, the top of the thigh bone. At some point, we'll hit the pelvis. Your butt pelvis will tip backwards slightly, and then reach your legs up to the sky, bring it down, and release it back out. Neutral pelvis. At some point, some flexion in your pelvis. Take it all the way up, down, release. Keep going. Let's go 10 more. And then bend both knees up. Take one foot in your hand, outer edge of the foot, or hand around your big toe to move towards a happy baby pose. pulling your knees down towards you again. At some point, the thighs will hit the top of the pelvis and your tailbone will start to lift up off the floor a little bit. And you can kind of find the balance between how much your hips can let go and how much that's going to happen. Pulling your knees down toward the floor, going into that deep hip flexion like a squat, and letting your low back have that little bit of rounding as you go deeper into that position, letting your hip muscles release, letting your butt muscles release. 2 deep breaths, fully in, fully out, fully in, fully out, and keeping your right leg there, taking a little bit of slack into that leg. Let your left leg drop all the way out on the floor. Now, just like this side is going to pull your pelvis under and create more arch in your back, this other side is going to this side is going to create more rounding in your back. This outstretched leg is going to create more hip extension, more arch in your low back on that left side. So find the balance between flexed hip on the right, extended hip on the left, and what that does to your low back and pelvis. And just feel that for a moment. Let any quad muscles or hip flexors or adductors in the front of that left hip, just let it release. Take 3 deep breaths. And then bringing that left leg up, sending the right leg out straight on the floor. And feeling that difference between now left hip being in flexion and a right hip moving into extension. Any quad tightness, any hip flexor tightness, letting that low back on this side begin to lift off the floor. Make sure that shoulder is tucked under so that you get as much extension that you need on that side. And just notice if you have one side that's really different than the other. Maybe this leg is hanging out way up here. It can't even get to the ground. That's a good indication you've got more length you need to go after on that front side. What is restricting that from being able to drop all the way into extension? Breathe and hold 3 deep breaths. Fully in, fully out. Check that ankle. I just noticed my foot was turned a little bit. See if you can pull that outer edge of the foot back so that your foot looks like you could be standing on it. Straight, in line with the ankle, in line with the knee, in line with the hip. And release it out. Grab onto your block. Set your block underneath your sacrum. Tuck your shoulders underneath you. This time, right leg pulling in, left leg pulling out, going a little more after your psoas. So letting this leg drop into some extension. Dropping it just back. This one pulling into flexion, shoulders down and back. This leg is much flexion, again in that split hip position. 3 breaths. Just allowing that hip to spin in the hip socket and then open, letting the muscles of the front of the leg have some length. Opposite of sitting in your chair all day or even being on your bike. And then slowly begin to pull that leg up and send it back out to the floor. And if you have a popping in your hip where you feel like a tendon rolls over a bone, play with holding the knee a little bit more in or holding the knee a little bit more out and see if you can get to a place where that hip doesn't snap, where you just have a smooth glide all the way up and all the way out. When you've done 10, switch sides. Shoulders down and back. Keep that thoracic extension as we ask for this hip extension. Pulling that knee in, 3 full breaths fully in. Expanding the ribs out to the side, making more space. Exhale, squeeze it out. 2 more.
Mama, look what I found in this jacket.
Oh, cool. It's a pretty cool jacket. That was Uncle Maddie's jacket. You want to say hi to the people on the camera?
Hi.
Good morning, McCoy.
Hi.
Hey, you look pretty awesome in that pilot's jacket.
Yeah.
Wow. Have a good day at school, sweetie boy.
Bye.
Okay, pull that leg in. Send it back out 10 times. So right now we're holding your pelvis basically stable and letting you find a little bit of hip extension. But normally the pelvis has a tiny bit of rotation when you drop the leg into hip extension. So we're going to explore that in just a minute. Good. Go ahead and come off the block. Set your hips down on the floor and just rock it back and forth, pelvic tilts. So if you have a shoulder that is hinging forward, that may change your ability to hip extend because of what your hip has to do just to balance your posture to stand upright when your shoulder's that far forward. Or vice versa, if you have a hip that's out of position and can't get behind you, maybe the shoulder rounds forward to compensate for that dysfunctional hip. Either way, when we look at your posture, it's going to be affected by what's happening along that line. So now, come onto your hands and knees. I'm going to keep working with this. This is the place that I said if you had 2 blocks, go ahead and grab them. And it might just help as we gently move into that. So come onto your hands and knees. Bring your right foot forward and leave your left hip back. Now I'm not going to ask you to keep your hips super square for this one. So if you feel like your hip wants to begin to open up on the back side, I'm going to be okay with that for right now. So let that open up as much as you can. Take a deep breath. Open the space. See if you can start to feel the butt muscles. Those are the muscles that take the hip behind you. And if you just have one block, you can have your hand on the floor or bring this block to this side so that you can help that stay up a little bit. And be a little bit mindful of not overstretching the muscles that are in the front of this hip. Though there's tendons and ligaments and muscles that can cross this hip joint. And if they get overstretched, then that hip can have too much play. So find the balance between lengthening some of that, getting the hip to move into extension, and dropping way too far into that. Then come on back and take this front foot forward, straightening out this leg, and let the whole front hamstring, front calf have some length. Just breathe into that space. Bending forward again, moving into that back hip, and finding a rhythm between moving back and forth between those 2 spaces. until you can warm it up enough. So letting that back hip, sometimes in yoga we really try to keep it square hip, but right now I'm going to let this back hip open as much as you can. And just let that whole leg, hip, get behind you. And just hang out and breathe. Hip extension. Releasing out of it. Slowly coming to the other side. And feeling into that back hip, letting that leg get behind you. Noticing the difference between one side and the other. And again, allow your pelvis to kind of turn right now. I'm okay with not keeping everything super square. Just let it open in the way that it can. And then moving back, letting that front leg go into more of a straight leg stretch. Taking this whole foot, calf, hamstring, and opening that up. Breathing, and then coming forward again. More length in that back leg. Find the glute. See if you can use the butt muscle to pull that leg bone back behind you, opening up some of those muscles in the front. And then maybe back and forth a couple more times. Whatever version of your splits you've got today. And then gently come out of it. Onto your hands and knees and integrate that into your pelvis with some cats and dogs. And then come down onto your side for an upper spinal floor twist, stacking your hips and knees. Now that we've found that new position in our pelvis, let's find some stability there. Open up your upper back, letting your whole spine twist, and breathe. Full breaths. Let's do 5 full breaths here. Fully in through your nose, bringing it into the lower lobes of your lungs. Exhale completely. Again, in and out. Squeezing all the air out. Maybe that allows you to ratchet your spine around a little more. Fully in. Exhale. In. Exhale. Last one. Full breath in. As big and wide as you can through your rib cage. And exhale completely. Untwist. And roll to the other side. Stack your hips and knees. And open it up. keeping your knees one right on top of the other. Notice again any differences between one side or the other. Add the breath. Inhale, exhale completely. Squeeze. Inhale. Full breath in, opening up this fascia on the side. Exhale. Twist a little more. Two more. Untwist. Coming onto your back. Modified IT band stretch. Crossing, let's go. Knees wider than your feet, wider than your hips. Bring both knees to the left. Put your left heel on top of your right knee and open up this entire right side of your body, reaching all the way up to the sky. Full breaths. Big internal rotation, length through the quadratus lumborum, still a spinal twist. Look to the right. Come on up. Both feet on the floor, wider than your hips, both the knees to the right. Right heel on top of your left knee. And then left hand over your head. Look left and breathe. Inhale, come back up. Both feet on the floor, arms down by your sides, shoulders tucked underneath you, pelvic tilts once more. Flattening your back, lengthening your spine. Okay, I'm going to stay with hip extension a little bit. Roll onto your hands and knees. Into hand leg opposite lifts. As you go up, a little stability at your low belly, but let your leg and arm come all the way up as high as you can possibly get them. Find the connection between this back shoulder and this back hip, that fascial connection, that muscle sling and muscle chain that goes all the way back there. Point your toes, squeeze the bottom of your foot, get it all the way up there and release. Good. Slight tension in your belly so it doesn't go too far. Extending that leg out. Lift it all the way up there. Finding again, butt to opposite shoulder. That whole extension through your spine. Release. Switch. Take it up. Squeeze your foot. Point your toes. Lift that leg. Find your butt muscles. Release. Switch. Switch. One more. Each side. And release. You may choose to do this one in a downward dog or up just on your hands and knees. We're going to do hip rotations. Okay, so if just being here and not loading it up feels good, otherwise go ahead and press up into your downward facing dog and do hip circles. So take the leg all the way up behind you, out to the side and around, and let your body just adjust to that. Heel high to the sky, out, around. Let's do 5 that way, and then we'll reverse our direction and do 5 the other way. Out, then up and around. And switch legs. Again, totally fine to be on your hands and knees for these. Up, out, and around. And then out and around the other way. Push that heel to the sky. Take that leg out and around. Hopefully you feel new muscles in your hip working after those splits. We found some new range of motion. And regular downward dog, lengthen and release. Nice work. Onto your back, feet on the floor, knees bent. One leg in the air, doing a lot of hip work today. 20 lifts up and down so that your butt on this leg on the floor is really working. Shoulders tucked underneath you. Make sure collarbones are wide. Lift and lower 20 times. Then switch. Second side. Lift and lower. And then both feet on the floor, both hips together, lifting and lowering. Find that glute. Make it even on both sides. Last 20. And release. Put the bottoms of your feet together. Allow your knees to drop out to the side. Feel the weight of your legs pull your pelvis a little bit so that it tips slightly forward. Check the alignment of your 2 hip bones. Just see, do you have one that wants to be way lower than the other, or are they basically straight across? If you had a hip that didn't want to go behind you or didn't want to extend in your pelvis, maybe a locked SI joint or something where it wasn't spinning in the hip socket well, then you might feel like, oh, when you drop it out like this, one pulls way forward than the other. And what we'd really like to see is a balanced pelvis with this neutral extension through your whole spine. Similar fallout between how far both knees can go. Go ahead and bring it in. Put that block between your knees and squeeze and release on that block. Pinch, release. Shoulders tucked under. Make sure that's even. Big full breath into your rib cage. Squeeze, release. Now let's go all the way in, full hip flexion. You can go ahead and point your toes like you're in child's pose. Feel the muscles in the bottom of your feet. Let your thigh bones hit the top of your pelvis and gently tuck your tailbone, and then squeeze and release again. Even cramps in your feet are good. 20 squeezes. Let's add your abdominals to that. So lift your upper body straight up to the sky. Feel your belly muscles work. 10 more squeezes. Back to neutral. Upper back neutral. Pelvis in neutral. 10 more squeezes there. Then let's go all the way out. Neutral hip extension. Some curve in your low back, shoulders tucking under again. Maybe they need to tuck under more. Feel the curve in your neck come into play. And then with your legs straight, feet flexing a little bit. Squeeze and release 20 more. Awesome. We're going to go more into hip extension again then. Take that away. Turn over onto your belly. Fold your hands under your forehead and completely relax your upper body. Feel your pelvis just get stable on the floor. And then bend your knees. Point your toes. Let that pull from the bending of your thighs, the pull on the two joint hip muscles, affect the low back. Pull it up there, point your toes a lot. Get the arches across your toes to work. The arches that go on both edges of your feet, really make them work. Pull your heels to try to touch your bum as best you possibly can. Maybe you get a hamstring cramp here too. Relax your upper body completely. Breathe. Now as your body lets go into that position, let's go up onto your fingertips. Lift your shoulders up and away from the floor. We're going to add some thoracic extension to that. Begin to peel your upper back off the floor as long as it's okay for your low back. If you start having discomfort or pinches or anything like that, then please skip this part. If it's okay, take the bottom edge of your shoulder blades, move them down your spine as you lengthen through your belly. Keep holding those legs here. You could also let your legs go out and get the upper body part, but not have such a huge pull on the lower body part. You choose what feels good to you. See if you can go a little more. That's hip extension, lumbar extension, thoracic extension, and release it down. Awesome. Press up onto your hands and knees. Round and arch your back. Once again, cats and dogs. Have a seat. Stretch your legs out on the floor. Take that fleshy part of your sit bone and just move it back. Line up the feet with the lower leg with your knees. Sit up really tall, hands in your lap. Tighten up the muscles around your knee, those quad muscles, those thigh muscles. Get them to work. Squeeze them. Try to roll your pelvis more forward. Squeeze your shoulder blades gently down your back. Can you lift your left leg off the floor 10 times? And then right leg. Left leg again. Right leg. And then sit tall, hands behind you. Femur rotations, roll the whole leg out and then back in so that your toes touch, and all the way out, outer edges of the feet, trying to touch on the floor. And then in, out, and in. Let's go 10 of those. Separate your legs so that they're wider apart. Same thing. Wider one more time. And then wider once more, really far out there, as far as your body will let you, into a QL stretch over to one side. Big full breaths on this side body. You can try to look up to the sky with that elbow behind you so that shoulder is moving onto your back. And just breathe. Feet flexing, thighs tight, pulling the whole leg into the hip socket. And then up and over to the other side. Again, just notice how easy is it for you to go over. Difference between one side and the other. You can see mine is very different here. If it's really tight on one side, can you move the shoulder around? Can you find the key? Maybe wiggle the hip. Find the key in your body to let that lumbar erector and quadratus lumborum, all these muscles along the side body, what lets them go? What needs to move? And then come on up. Bring your legs in. Let's go after a little bit of balance work. Stand up and just feel how all that's feeling. Grab one or both of your blocks. I'm going to go after some tip overs today. Find your balance. Bend over. Control it all the way. Into that hip extension, that back leg behind you. Lift that back leg up as high as you can. And then pendulum your body back up. Do that 10 times. All the way over. Glute, hamstring, everything on this front side having to work. Then lift that back leg up one more time as high as you can get it. It's fine with me if the hip opens today. We don't have to keep it super square. Just let that leg go. However you can get that leg up as high as possible into the splits. Find your butt muscles and then come back up to standing. Over. Hands to the chair, hands on your blocks, hands to the floor, and then get it up there, find that hip extension, back up. Switch sides. High as you can get it. Find that back side. Find the stability in this front leg. Excellent. When you've done 10 on both sides, just go ahead and go back into your forward fold. Line up your outer edges of your feet as best you can. Get as strong and stable on your legs as possible. Toes pressing into the floor so that you maintain good stability up the inner arch of your foot all the way up to behind your knee. Letting your head go. Gently folding as best you can. As you fold all the way over and you get to a certain point, your knees should gently turn out to the sides. That would be an indication that you've engaged your hip flexor well. And you'd be pretty much straight up and down over your ankles. Go ahead and find your glutes, hands to your sides. Use your butt muscles to lift you all the way back up to standing. Just check your standing posture for a moment. Feet on the floor. Check that balance that you checked in the beginning. How does that feel to you? Hopefully more straight up and down. I can tell in the camera that, so my tibial torsion, this where my knee goes in and my shin goes out, was pretty bad this morning, and that is lining up much better. So I must have done something for my legs. Hopefully it worked for yours too. Take a deep breath in, inhale, reach all the way up, full stretch. Find that length, and then release your arms. Come into whatever position is most comfortable for you for the last few minutes, lying down on the floor, legs out straight, or legs up over your block or your bench. Tune back into your own breathing. Allow your body to be completely supported by the floor. Let your shoulders tuck underneath you. If you have any more release that needs to happen in your chest or your shoulders, allow that. Let's allow that by taking your hands and just making a fist and squeezing your fingers together. You might even rotate your wrists around a little bit. Fully contract your hands and then allow the expansion quality to open up your hands. And then bring your hands into the golfer's grip and move your hands in to flexion and extension with the wrist or gentle wrist circles to feel the muscles of the forearms contract. How would you contract your forearms? Squeeze your forearms and then feel your forearms expand. And then curl your arms up, maybe so your hands touch your shoulders. And go into the full contraction of your biceps. The muscles on the front of your arm, like you're making a big bicep. And then expand that. And allow your arms to go all the way out on the floor. Now turn your palms so that they're palms down and press your entire arm down onto the floor. Go into that tricep squeeze. Tricep press. So the back side of your arms, feel those. And then release. Good. And then into your neck muscles, like clench your jaw into your neck muscles, the muscles on the front. Squeeze those and then soften them. And curl your shoulders in so that your chest contracts and then expands. Then press your shoulders into the floor and feel the back side of your shoulders engage and expand. And then your belly. I don't want you to curl yourself up, but just squeeze your belly muscles. Maybe take a breath, exhale all the air out. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And then inhale. And then your back muscles. So as you kind of press your body more into the floor, let the heaviness of your back make your back muscles engage a little bit. And then soften. Good. And then to get your quads to engage, you're going to have to lift your legs up or tighten your thighs if your legs are just out on the floor. So stretch your knee more straight, tighten up your thighs, and release. And then the back side of your legs. So wherever you are, if you're on the floor, press the back of your legs down into the floor. Maybe even you feel up into your butt muscles that way. If your legs are up over a chair or a bench, press them into the floor or into the bench to feel the backside engage a little bit, and then soften. And then point your toes and feel the bottom of your feet engage as the top extends, and then pull them back and go the other way. And then soften. Now take 1 minute to just rest in the expansion quality that we've created, paying attention to your breathing, being mindful of your thoughts or mindless if you can, allowing the thoughts to just move through without gaining your attention. And that's a minute. Go ahead and just take a full deep breath. Feel your body once again, and either turn off your computer or unmute yourself if you'd like a moment to check in before we end. Let me know how that big hip work felt to you all.